on whatever show he's the GM of. If he replaces a Daniel Bryan or a Mick Foley in time, that remains to be seen, but at least he wouldn't have to be on Raw and SmackDown as much. He can have time off, time away from the spotlight, and he can really put his life into perspective and really just slow things down, because at 58 years of age, I mean, what is to be expected from Sting? Should we expect nothing less than him wanting to slow it down, to have a desire to want to slow it down? And if not for this neck injury, one also could wonder, will we really be seeing the end of Sting's illustrious career? Did he want to be remembered as the guy who came in and lost just 2 matches one-on-one on pay-per-view to Triple H and Seth Rollins? I mean, if I were Sting from that perspective, I wouldn't want to be remembered as a legend who had defeated every name he had stepped in the ring with at least once, and then go to WWE on the biggest stage you could perform on just to lose to Triple H at WrestleMania 31. That enough was a slap in the face, and that enough should have told you should have slowed it down then. But then to go from that 6 months later, a half a year later, and get in the ring with Seth Rollins and lose again after breaking your neck halfway through the match and being so professional about it, finishing the match, having a broken neck, that is just so professional. And that's actually what happened. During that match, people have forgotten about how Sting was so professional. He wanted to finish the match. He didn't want the match stopped. They wanted to stop the match. The doctors wanted him to stop the match and just forfeit it, but he wanted to keep going, and that's what he did, demonstrating just how professional he was in that time, and just how professional he had been his entire career. So I think nobody is ever going to forget that. I think that a lot of people should just think about just how professional Sting has been over his career and how professional he handled his retirement. Here's the thing about Sting that separates him from everybody else. People just make the decision to retire. They come to that crossroads, that proverbial crossroads in their career, and I know this from having spoken to hundreds of wrestlers over the years and my time spent in this business. They come to this proverbial crossroad where they just say, okay, I'm done, I'm retired. But there are very few people who come out and actually say they are retired. And that's where that fine line gets drawn, in my opinion. They are separated from the people who don't explain why they retired or came to that crossroads in their lifetime. And I think you have to have a lot of respect, more respect than you do have for the people who don't explain the reason behind their retirement than the people that do explain the reasons before their retirement. And that's what Sting and so many exceptional few can have an exception made for having done. I mean, Sting at least came out on the network. You had to have a great deal of respect and explain the reason for his retirement and coming to what I believe was a really critical point in time for him to get to in his career. I mean, Sting has done a lot in his career, and I think he can be extremely satisfied with what he has given us as wrestling fans. I mean, because so many people don't even have the chance to create in the way Sting has had the chance to create in whatever company he's worked with over the years. Sure, he didn't have hundreds of moments in WWE and a lot of moments for us to look back on, but even those few moments that he gave us in WWE working with Triple H and Seth Rollins, they are still videos on YouTube. I watch hundreds of times over. My nephew and myself love to sit down and watch Sting moments on YouTube. He's one of the biggest fans of Sting, and he's only about 7 or 8 years old, and that just goes to show just how far Sting's career spans. I mean, fans of Sting range anywhere from 7 years old to 77 years old, and that's just amazing when you have that many number of fans who are just into your career and know of your legacy. Just knowing of Sting's legacy just shows how far his career spans and how far you can go back through the years of Sting. The age demographic speaks for itself. I mean, yeah, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Triple H, The Undertaker will always have their fans. The Undertaker will always have their fans. People who were extremely terrified of The Undertaker when they were 5, 6 years old. I know I was extremely terrified of The Undertaker. Not only was I extremely terrified of The Undertaker, but I know hundreds of people who were extremely terrified of The Undertaker. They know of The Undertaker, they know of Sting, and they are let down that we're not going to be seeing Sting versus The Undertaker. I understand that, but Sting has just come to a critical point in his life where he had to make this decision. He was pretty much backed into a proverbial corner. He was forced to have to make this decision, and the downer of it all is we're not going to see Sting have the chance to create with so many people that he could have had the chance to create with. Even Rusev and Roman Reigns are just some examples I can throw your way that Sting could have created with because of that experience he could have offered if he kept on wrestling. And here's the thing, if not for this injury, Sting is someone who you could have gotten 4 or 5 years out of, but when you really think about it, with the injury Sting has suffered from in his career, I mean, how much more of a physical toll could this have taken on Sting, and how much further could he have been pushed as a performer? Not that further. They were teasing feuds like Sting versus Bo Dallas, Sting versus this guy, Sting versus that guy. They've been teasing Sting versus The Undertaker for years, especially off that WWE Network special where they talked about how loyal Sting and The Undertaker were to their respective shows. I know I had video blogged about Sting versus The Undertaker countless times on my YouTube channel, just praying and hoping that we were going to get to that crossroads where Sting versus The Undertaker was going to happen. I was just dying for Sting or The Undertaker to come out and challenge the other one to a match at WrestleMania or Survivor Series, wherever in the hell it was going to happen. I didn't care. I just thought that Sting versus The Undertaker was a match that had to happen And that's probably the most that I'm upset about, is the fact that Sting, the biggest thing that I'm upset about is Sting and The Undertaker is not going to be happening because of Sting confirming his retirement. But I do recommend for you that you go on the WWE Network on demand, and if you didn't see Legends with JBL, it's one of the more recent episodes of Legends with JBL. You have to see this Sting interview because it's really in-depth and it will answer a lot of unanswered questions you may have had, at least for the last year and a half. And I know I've been diehard on the return of Sting and finding out what his role with the company was going to be. We needed to know when Sting was going to compete again. 6 months after his match with Triple H, we found that out. We didn't know going into the match it was going to be Sting's final match, and I think that if it was going to be Sting's final match, Sting would have said something very emotional at the conclusion of the match, and it would have had a lot more emotion behind it from wrestling fans, but nobody knew it was going to be Sting's last match. Sting himself didn't know it was going to be his last match. Nobody knew. They were really oblivious to all that was going to happen in this match, and that just goes to show just how fast something can happen in professional wrestling. People will criticize wrestling till the day they die about how it's fake and it's not as professional as some sports like MLB, NFL, NBA, whatever, mixed martial arts. People will prefer mixed martial arts fighting over professional wrestling because of the realism. I understand that and how real it is and just how you're getting in there to kill your opponent, and people just prefer this brutal sport over wrestling. But the thing is about professional wrestling is you have to be extremely talented to be able to compete in a 20 by 20 foot ring and to make a living in a 20 by 20 foot ring. If you can't talk on that microphone, if you can't wrestle, if you can't entertain anybody and produce numbers, produce zeros at the end of numbers for WWE, then you're not going to be in the main events. That's why people like Daniel Bryan, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, The Undertaker, Dolph Ziggler have been in the main events for years. They've been clawing and scratching because they can get WWE numbers and produce ratings. That's all Vince McMahon has cared about for years, and that's the thing Sting did for years. He created for whatever company he worked with, and he produced numbers for Ted Turner and World Championship Wrestling, and that's why he became the icon that he did and will forever be known as. Regardless of where Sting goes from here, Sting will always be remembered as a legend. He is in the WWE Hall of Fame, and deservingly so. It was a very emotional goodbye from Sting at the WWE Hall of Fame ceremony this year. I enjoyed hearing what Sting had to say. It was very emotional, but he said this was his goodbye. And I think that he handled it very professional, regardless how you may or may not feel about Sting. I want to know what your opinion is on Sting finally confirming his retirement, coming out and being very honest about it, which a lot of people have great difficulty doing. So because of that, I think what we should take away from all of this is a tremendous amount of respect for Sting, if anything. And just remember all the moments he created for us over the last 25 years. 25 years. I said this to Paul Ellering. 10 years is a long time to do something that you have done your entire life and always wanted to do, and then you should move on from having done that. I had a very vivid conversation with the manager of the LOD, Paul Ellering, back in 2008, 2009, and 25 years, a difference of 15 years for Sting, is a really long time to have done something. So I think we should have an extreme amount of respect for Sting and never forget everything that he's done. And I think that every wrestling fan, even the people who weren't around to experience Sting's initial run with whatever company he debuted with, and of course all the companies he worked with over the years, I think that for those of you who don't understand who Sting really is, I think you would have a greater appreciation if you watched his moments and matches, which are available on resources like the network. Use the network as a resource and go back and find out some of these matches, because you will have a greater appreciation for who Sting is and who Sting's legacy revolved around for years. I mean, he had so many opportunities to create with Ric Flair, Goldberg, Vader, so many incredible matches that I don't think are going to be forgotten, matches and moments. And I think that for those of you who weren't around to experience Sting in the thriving years of his career, I mean, you really missed out on an incredible opportunity. So if anything, use the network as a resource and go back and relive these moments for people who were there, and for people who weren't there, go back and experience who Sting really was and just come away from it. Trust me, you will come away from it with a greater appreciation for who he is. But all in all, this retirement handled very professionally. That's more than what I can say for other individuals who have handled their retirements very unprofessionally over the years. And I'm not saying anything out of context, because I think a lot of retirements over the years have been handled very unprofessionally that didn't need to be handled that way. So I think a lot of respect has to be had and gained, if not had, for Sting, because Sting is just a remarkable individual who's not going to be forgotten about any time soon. Hashtag thank you, Sting, without a doubt. I'm your host, Jonathan Clarke, and I will talk to you again next week.
Like what you hear? Tell us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
It's too hard to sleep. I got the sheets on the floor, nothing on me, and I can't take it no more. It's 100 degrees. I got 1 foot out the door. Where are my keys? 'Cause I gotta leave, yeah. In the back of the cab, I took the drive ahead of time. Get me the fast. I got makes me so